Good morning. Good morning. Do we have this on? Good morning. Welcome, everyone. I am Katie Bibish-Moline, and I've had the privilege this year to serve as chair of EPIC Toledo. And for those of you that are new to EPIC, welcome. I know that you will come to love EPIC as much as I have during your time here. We continue to accomplish our mission of connecting emerging leaders to each other in the community. And this year, I'd really like to highlight a few of our accomplishments. We've continued to have signature events like our leadership golf outing, our T-Town Dash, and our nonprofit Palooza. Our EPIC socials have taken us to the new Treehouse Village with the Metro Parks, being part of the Momentum Downtown with the Arts Commission, and the LPGA Marathon Classic. Internally, I'm really proud of our newly formed membership committee that's reached out to 250 new members this year. And further, we've connected with our past advisory to make a stronger EPIC today. As you know, EPIC Toledo is the largest young professional organization in the region with over 2,000 members. We connect people, we strive to attract and retain diverse talent in our region, and we are building the next generation of business and community leaders, all of which make for a stronger community. As I look in this jam-packed crowd, I can see we're bursting with talent, and the future is going to be crafted by us. We are showing all the naysayers that Toledo is a dynamic place to build your life and grow your career. I returned to Toledo after I completed my education to make a difference, and I think a lot of you are here today to do the same thing. So my leadership journey with EPIC started about 5 years ago in the same exact location where you're sitting today at the EPIC Leadership Summit. But it was solidified about 5 months later when I had the chance to get coffee with other EPIC leaders and the CEO of ProMedica, Randy Ostra. At that point, he shared his vision for downtown Toledo. And as he excitedly told us about this, he really emphasized that as EPIC leaders, as young leaders in this community, the importance of our role in its success. And you can see 5 years later that vision really came to life with the hard work of a lot of talented individuals in our community. And we've seen significant growth in Toledo, and I think we've seen significant growth in EPIC, and I really believe that the two are connected. And with that, we have very talented members that continue to contribute to this community. So, why are you here today? I hope it's not just for the happy hour, but more for the connections that you're going to make. They will not only help your career, but they will better our entire community. You're here today to advance and to grow and to gain knowledge. You're here because you want to do all those things by engaging in the greatest resource we have, which is each other. Together, there's nothing we cannot accomplish. And just think of the collective knowledge and skill that we have in this room today. It can be harnessed and multiplied by you connecting with each other and then furthering those connections out into the world. And in that spirit, I do congratulate you for being here today. You and your business have made an investment for your own success and development. And one I'll leave you with, EPIC has 3 pillars that really define its mission: professional leadership, connections, and community impact. And so with that, I have a few challenges for you today. So with EPIC leadership and professional development, this is about us accelerating our influence. So today I challenge you to really absorb what you learn from all of our speakers and our leaders and take that advice and wisdom out into the world. For networking, social opportunities, we connect people. So you should go out and meet someone new, and then not just meet someone new, but set up a time and date to actually get a cup of coffee so you can get to know each other better. And with community impact, I would say get involved. Get more involved with EPIC. Get more involved in your community. Join a committee. Join a board. Go to a new event. And then use that to advance your own story. So those are my challenges. And hopefully these will boost your own talent and your potential in your career and building on top of each other and as you go out into the world today and tomorrow and next year. So before I leave the stage, I do want to say who I'm grateful for who have made this all possible. First of all, those who have came before, all of the EPIC leadership that has existed in the last 12 years, and you and your businesses for supporting EPIC and specifically this amazing day. I'd also like to thank Rebecca Shope, who's our past chair of EPIC, and the countless time, endless energy, and never-ending support and guidance she's given us. Sarah Swisher, director of EPIC, Toledo. None of this would be possible without her. She is a rising star that will continue to shine and elevate young professionals in our region. And finally, I'd like to have all EPIC advisory members of 2019 stand up to be recognized. And with that, we also had a phenomenal committee that put this entire event together. So would the people that served in the summit committee stand up now too to be recognized? Thank you for all your hard work. So now I'd like to invite Nathan Anderson, who was the EPIC Leadership Summit chairman, to the stage. Starting just a few days after the 2018 summit, he started crafting his work for today's event. And Nathan is one of the most thoughtful and perceptive leaders I know. And so we're very grateful to you for all the work that you've done to make today possible. So I will just close with saying involvement in EPIC makes us strong, and a strong EPIC moves our entire community forward. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you this morning. It's been a true honor and a pure joy to serve as chair of EPIC in 2019. And I'm looking forward to seeing the next years together. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Katie. I do want to take a moment to dig into something that Katie just said to everybody, and that was taking some of the things you learned today out into the world. And I want to dig into that a little bit, focusing on exactly what this day is all about. And we spent a lot of time putting together an agenda that will help you all to deal with the biggest challenges that you're going to face in your careers. So I had a few remarks I actually prepared, I don't know, maybe a month ago or so, and they were wonderfully theoretical. And we had this good concept that, what we wanted to do today was give the attendees an opportunity to walk away with a game plan. And, when things get tough or when they're dealing with a really big issue in their professional careers, they can take that nice game plan off the shelf and dust it off, and they can implement it. And it was such a great idea. I'm sure some of our speakers who have more experience are chuckling right now because of how naive that sounds. But I do want to share something with you guys. A couple weeks ago, I had what maybe is a fortuitous experience now, but I got called into a meeting on a Monday morning, and I received some of the most difficult news I've ever gotten in a professional setting or any setting for that matter. And without any warning, I had a crisis on my hands that was the most difficult that I ever have had to deal with yet. Aside from being challenging, and in hindsight, I've had a little time to reflect on it. A few things happened immediately, and in the days that followed that. One, I was scared pretty quickly. We were dealing with a challenge that ultimately could threaten our business. I was more myopic. I didn't have the same kind of perspective, ability to make connections that I typically think I have. And I wasn't very present. So, I remember having conversations with colleagues that weren't dealing with this issue that we had to solve. Maybe they wanted to talk about something else. I don't even remember them because what was going on in my mind in the background was this tape recorder. How the heck are we going to get out of this mess? Since then I came to realize that's not really the right time or frame of mind to try and put something new into practice. I mean, practically, when each of you find yourself in that position someday, are you really going to go back to your notebook and calmly and in a reflective manner go and thumb through your notes and say, this would be a good time to try this so I can deal with this really difficult, challenging situation with a lot on the line? And I think we all know the answer to that is probably not. So the game plan is still the same. The purpose of the day is to give you the tools that you actually can implement when you have a really difficult, challenging situation. But I think the point that I wanted to make clear today is don't wait until you're facing a moment where you have it all on the line. At the end of the day, really big challenges are just scaled up versions of small ones. And we have small bits of friction and challenges that we face every day. So the opportunity here is to take what you learn, take the game plan, but try to implement it in ways that you can on a daily basis so that it's not a theory anymore, it's something you've internalized and it becomes part of your capability and your skill set that when the moment hits, when you need to react, that you actually can put things into practice that are a part of you at that point. So that takes some effort, and everybody I know is capable of doing it, and it could be the biggest return on investment that you have in your career if you put the time in to be prepared. Just a little bit about the agenda. We spent a lot of time crafting something that would really build throughout the day with a focus on handling crucial conversations, understanding that when you have to solve real issues and challenges under pressure, it usually boils down to interacting with an individual, whether it's a confrontation or somebody that's on your side and you got to figure out a problem. Managing that communication is really, really important. So each speaker is going to address a topic that we put together, and that's going to be part of a whole piece that you guys can take away. On that front, the place that we want to start today, and our first speaker is brought in specifically to deal with this, but this whole conversation starts with you, with an internal self-awareness. And that's why we brought in our first speaker, Krishna Pendyala, who's an internationally recognized expert on the art and science of human judgment and choice-making. He focuses on a skill that's critical but rarely addressed. He trains and coaches leaders and their teams how to make better choices and exercise better judgment in the heat of the moment. According to him, it all starts with self-awareness. We can't do much to raise our IQ, but Krishna says we can all raise our JQ, which is our judgment quotient. He's the creator of the JQ Accelerator Bootcamp, a half-day workshop that helps business leaders realize more fulfillment with enhanced success from their teams. He is also the author of Beyond the Pig and the Ape, Realizing Success and True Happiness. He's been featured on TEDx, The Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Inc. magazine, and others. Please welcome Krishna Pendyala, the founder of Choice Ladder Institute and the president of Mindful Nation Foundation.
You put a smile on my face already.
Good.
Thank you. Good morning. So I heard that the highway was closed down, but I'm glad you guys navigated your first challenge for the day. So I'm so glad you're here. Let me start with some good news. Yes, it's Friday. Aren't you glad you're here? And Nathan, Sarah, and Katie have put together a beautiful, I have worked with a lot of organizers, and I have to say, the amount of effort they put in to really think through the entire day and how to arrange the different topics was really excellent. Thank you. Great job. So their goal was to make you awesome by Monday. And today we're going to give that a shot. So how do you get to be awesome on Monday? But before we get there, how many of you in the audience believe you make awesome choices already? Not me. Cool. How many of you would like to make awesome choices by Monday? All right. How many of you don't care? Okay. So in order to make choices, the first thing we have to do is, awesome is an adjective. And I play with words, so please pay attention. So an awesome is an adjective. And you'll see soon, in order to be awesome, we need to make some adjustments. And over the course of my talk, you'll realize what ADJ stands for. Okay? So let's start with a little quick survey. How many choices do you think you make in a day? And I have prizes too, but I'll tell you who gets the prize at the very end. So how many choices? Shout out. Anybody? This is not Price is Right, guys, so it's okay. Just go over. So what do you think it is? One at a time. 20,000. Woo! Anybody higher or lower? Okay. I think she's right. The 20,000, greater than 30,000. But the interesting part is you don't think it's that high number because you don't have a clue you're making them. You don't count. So many of them happen without our knowledge. So imagine if you're making choices without your knowledge, what the outcome might be for your life. You don't know till it happens. So the whole idea for me to share with you is to really get to know what drives you and what are some of these choices. Now, there are some choices you shouldn't have to think about. For example, how many of you drove to get here? Almost all of you, I hope, I guess. If you had to think how much to turn the wheel or how much pressure to put on the gas or the brake every time you had to do it, I guarantee you'll be worn out by the time you got here. You wouldn't have any time to pay any attention to what's going on today. So some of the things that you do, you really don't want to think. And that's what mastery is about. So you learn how to make those, like Nathan was talking about, so that when the time comes, you know how to slam your brakes. You don't have to think. Do you think you have time to think, process, analyze, and then hit the brakes? No. So some things you don't want to have to think about, but some things you want to think about. Those are just two different types of choices. So let's start with a choice here. How many of you can see two squares, an A and a B? All of you? Tell me which one of them looks darker to you. Anybody thinks B is darker? There should always be one person. Thank you very much. So, at least one. Okay. So let's chip away at this context here. And A still looks darker than B. They are the same. So imagine, and how many of you thought A was darker than B again? Most of the room, I hope. Raise your hand, it's okay. There's a little bit of exercise, right? Now I'll make it a little bit worse. You know the answer, right? They are identical. And you know the answer. Does A still look darker than B? Why do you think that is? It's because of the context. The shadow that casts around that square B makes the square surrounding look darker. That makes B look lighter. And ladies and gentlemen, this is life. When we see another human being or any situation, we just don't see them cut out. We see everything around them, which is the context. So how many of you, after doing this little 2-minute exercise, can confidently say, honey, I saw it with my own eyes? Okay, we don't have anybody. Good. So Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he said, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. So that's the whole exercise we'll go through, is how to get more familiar. And by the way, you guys have a handout in your book, and most of the things that you can keep track of is in there, so you don't have to take copious notes. You can pay attention here. All right, so given that that's what we're going to be talking about, can I count all of you to be all in right here and not be thinking about other things? Yes? Okay, because we're going on a high-speed journey because all I have is 1 hour, not half a day. Okay, so we are living in VUCA times, and for those of you who don't know what VUCA stands for, it's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous times. And I don't know how many of you feel like that, but I do on some days. And it's never been harder to run a business or lead a team during this time. Okay, so as Nathan mentioned earlier, it's very important that when the heat of the moment, usually Either you have to make a choice and you have to deal with another person or at least yourself. So the more you know yourself, that's the starting point because everything starts from within you. How many of you have heard this statement? Good judgment comes from experience, and a lot of that comes from bad judgment. Right? It sounds funny. It was funny for a while until I realized that I'm very fortunate and grateful to be here because of the number of poor choices I've made in my own life. And those of you who read my book will find out the extent of the poor choices that I've made. But I have a question for you. Do you have that luxury? Right? Can you afford it? In this day and age, can you afford the luxury of learning exclusively from experience by making bad choices? Yes or no? No. So then maybe the next hour will be useful. So how many of you have played this game, Chutes and Ladders or Snakes and Ladders? Yeah? And everyone in this room is a high achiever, right? We are a leader. So which means what do we want? We want to get to 100 ASAP. So what are we looking for? Ladders. What gets us down? The chutes or the snakes? And I've analyzed this game to find out if you look at the length of every snake, they're a lot longer than the length of every ladder. So as we're looking for tips and tricks, what really we need to be looking for are tips and traps. The traps are, what is a trap? A trap is something that's unexpected. You don't see it, you walk, you fall in. So the whole idea is to get more aware of the traps that you fall into. And trap means unknowingly, because how many of you will choose to fall into a trap? I hope nobody in this room, right? But the idea is we all do fall into traps. And so the goal is to figure out how to identify a trap before you step into it. Does that make sense? So starting with loopholes. So I always look for loopholes. So one day at a time is a beautiful statement that came out of the 12-step program that works wonderfully within that context so that they can get by that day. But it has a loophole. What do you think that loophole is? So if we take the context out and say, okay, I want to live one day at a time, which means there's an assumption that there is no tomorrow, which means you can do whatever you want today and have a great time. What happens when you drink too much on that day? Most likely you pay for it the next day. Some pay for it the same day, but that's a different story, right? But most pay for it the second day. So I came up with this idea of 2 days at a time, which means make sure whatever you do today doesn't screw up your tomorrow. That's it. So I'm not trying to make you a worrywart and think about 10 years from now, but at least start thinking about the choice you make today. Will it serve you? And we'll talk about that more. So let's start with the focus exercise. Everybody talks about focus, 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 pay attention, focus. So let's watch this little video.
This is an awareness test. How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
High achievers, I know you'll get this answer right. So what's the answer? Awesome. Let's watch the rest of it.
The answer is 13.
Good job.
But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
The answer is on the screen, but what do you think happened? I got you focused. the video got you focused on counting the number of passes, and we missed something right in front of our eyes. As high achievers, how do you think this might affect you? When you focus narrowly on something, you are bound to miss other things. So one of the things is not to say that, oh, I can do it, rather than acknowledge when you focus on something. So again, I'm not saying focus is a bad thing, but when you focus on something, make sure you have somebody watching for other things. Does this make sense? So when you're driving in Los Angeles, how many of you have driven in Los Angeles? People pass you on motorbikes in your lane. You're driving at 8 miles an hour and they're driving at 45. So it's just a whole different dynamic. So checking to see if anybody is in your lane and then changing lanes doesn't really work because they zip by you. And so for me, if I'm driving alone in Los Angeles, I don't change lanes because I might take somebody out. But if I have a passenger, what would I ask them to do? Look back, because if I keep look back, I'm going to rear-end the person in front, or the chances increase. So those are the kinds of things that once you know, you can start paying attention to. So the kryptonite of attention, or really in psychology, are three things, which is stress, mood, and threat. And I have added for high achievers one more thing, which is hyperfocus. Because we are goal-oriented, yes? Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room. You set goals and achieve them. That's why you're here. But in that process, you're setting yourself many traps, many, not one. So the key is to become more aware of, as you become focused on your goals, what happens. All right? So, when you think of a word radar, what comes to mind? At least for me, the first thing that comes to mind is air traffic control, where planes are landing and taking off. And I jokingly ask, do radar screens have scroll bars? Anybody know? What would happen if they had scroll bars? Everything that's outside the screen would be in trouble. Same thing with us. What's not on our radar doesn't get the attention we need to pay. So it's very critical that you define your personal radar. What is it that you're watching at all times? And the first thing is to be clear about what are the stuff you're good at and what you know. And the second part, this is another trap for high achievers, is we are really good at finding out everything we don't know, and by God, I'm going to get it done by Monday. Right? But the real trap is the big piece of the pie that you don't know that you don't know. And these are blind spots. Because if you don't know that it exists, you are not even close to looking out for it. Does that make sense? So blind spots, learning how to expose more of your blind spots is a key skill. And who can help you learn about your blind spots the best? Your partner. And it was funny, one of the executives I coach one day called me and said, Krishna, can you help me reduce my blind spots, or at least tell me what my blind spots are? Because if I ask my wife, it'll be too long a list. True. So if you really want to get to know your blind spot, ask your spouse. You will get it. Don't be defensive. At least keep it in your back pocket and work on it for the rest of your life, right? So, an example of another blind spot, young executive, different one, who's taking over his family business, and I'm there to help that transition happen. And I noticed that in every meeting that I was at, when somebody said something, he would say, starting words, no, I'm not mincing it, Let me tell you why I think you're wrong. And then say whatever he wanted to say. How do you think that worked? You're the son of the owner, you're 26 years old, and this is how you speak. Let me tell you why I think you're wrong. And the worst part or best part, whichever way you want to look at it, he didn't have a clue he was doing that. And do you think anybody told him? That's the problem. So in the work environment, most people wouldn't tell him because guess who he is? The future CEO. And this is how he speaks. So what did I have to do? Surreptitiously videotape him doing that and show it to him. End of story. I told him one time, and in the last 3 years, he's never done it again. So the beauty of blind spots is once you know what they are and it shocks you, you can make a change instantly. That's the benefit of blind spots. So it's not a laborious exercise of learning, so that's the good news. But getting to know, getting help, and learning your blind spots is a great exercise. And driving, since everybody, all of us drive, is a beautiful laboratory to learn about everything I'm talking about today. Because you got to make quick choices. You got to make the right choices. And there's so much going on in the heat of the moment. Yes? Back, front, back, every which way you turn, there's something going on, including the phone call, including the drink tipping over, right? And then, or something falling over and you reaching. All these are true to life traps. So people used to wonder, right? Oh, don't use the radio because it's a distraction. Then came the CD. Then came one of the biggest accident creators was the Biggie drink. Because when the Biggie drink was originally designed, it didn't have that narrow bottom, which means it didn't fit into any cup holders. So where do you think you put it? Because you want a good deal, so you got the Biggie. Now you put it on the dashboard or the armrest or wherever, and you take a turn. Very predictable. What happens? And when it tips, what do you do? Very predictable. Do you say, let it spill? You say, holy Toledo. And then you grab for it, right? That's what we do. What a setup. So then they had to change the design because of the issues that came out of that broad bottom. So what drives most choices? The answer is on the screen, and you don't have to write it down, it's in your handout. Impulsivity is human, and we were bestowed and blessed with this skill to survive. That's what kept us alive as a species, because unless we are able to deal with danger very quickly, and we have the police chief talking later today, how you have to make very quick decisions instantly. First responders, firemen, police officers, they have to do. That's a whole special skill. But for most of us, the rest of us, we are still impulsive because we still think we live in the jungle. And there's something chasing us, even though it's not real, because our mind thinks it's real. So this is where self-awareness comes, where is it made up or is it real? And fear, there's a great acronym for fear that I like, which is false experiences appearing real. False experiences appearing real. So the key is to figure out, is this for real or am I making this up? And impulsivity can come because of fear, anger, but usually it's an emotion. And now let me tell you my impulsive behavior. So I'm in this parking lot in a Walmart probably 20 years ago, maybe 25 actually, and my mother is in the back seat, my wife is in the passenger seat, and we're having an argument. That doesn't happen for you, I know, it happens only in my house. So we're having this argument, and therefore my brain is involved in the argument, and I'm driving really slow through this parking lot, and somebody honks. What do you think I did? Flipped him off. What do you think happened next? He got out of the car, came out ready to fight. Luckily, by then I knew I was 100% at fault, apologized profusely, told him my mother is in the back, and he didn't deck me. So I survived. That's why I said I'm grateful to be here today. That would have been gone. And these days, you don't know what road rage can do. But that's impulsivity, and I know none of you do this, okay? So this is confession time. Then came a day when I fired somebody in my company, and that was even rough. So this gentleman, I call him a gentleman, I had flex hours in my company, and he decided to come at 5 o'clock in the evening. Yeah. And he was the head of engineering. So which means we can't have a staff meeting until 5 p.m. if we really want to have everybody in the group. So I actually asked people to stay later so that this gentleman could participate. And so we had our first 5 o'clock staff meeting, and he doesn't show up. At 5:30, he opens the door to the conference room, and with a smirk on his face, "You guys having a meeting or something?" What do you think that did to me, the CEO? And he didn't come in, he left. So at 6:15, when we were done, I go talk to him, and he used the F word. And I lost it. I fired him on the spot, but there could have been different ways, and I said some nasty things which I don't want to repeat here. But we had to pay him a nice separation amount so that he would leave quietly. But it was all my fault. Again, yes, he did what he did, but there could have been a better way. So now, what about you? Take a minute and think about 1, 2, or 3 things and write them down where you're being impulsive, whether at work or at home or in between, in the car. There's a portion in your handout where you can actually write it down. It looks like this. So the key is, once you've written down the impulsive act, write down what the result was for that impulsive act. Was that an impulsive act or? Okay. And then write down what that cost you. And cost doesn't have to be in dollars. It's really about what was the impact of your impulsive act. Now, if I asked you, could you have handled it differently, what would you say? Anybody with a no? It's okay to say no because that's a conscious choice. I had a very good physician friend of mine, very accomplished. One day he called me and said, "Hey, Krishna, I knew it was my ego, but I did it anyway." And I'm quiet, I'm just not saying anything, and he's getting really confused. Because I had been coaching him probably about 2 years at that point, so he was expecting what? How could you do that? But I said, great. Now he's really confused. He said, why did you say great? I said, because when the ball comes back, you know your contribution to this mess. Right? Otherwise, what would he call it? He did this to his boss, okay? So it's coming back for sure. But this boss has a brand of being called an ass. So if the boss came back and said something nasty to him, he would say, oh, he's just being an ass. But not this time, because who started this? My friend. That's awareness. So when you know, if you serve the ball, most likely it's coming back. And you serve the ball faster, it's like ping pong. It comes back faster. So being aware of your role in anything is a cool thing, so that you stop blaming others for what happens. So it's about owning up to what you do in the equation. So the types of decisions we have to deal with, one is obviously the snap judgment, okay? Which is we look at a person from a distance and we either decide we like them or no. That comes purely from our biology and our neurobiology, which is friend or foe. We got to make sure, are they going to kill us or not? But that's not what consciously goes on, but that's what's going on. I'm not going to talk about that. I can't change that. And then there are very laborious processes for decision making. You pull out your Excel spreadsheet and write pros and cons, and then you start putting weights, and you can do all kinds of things. That's not what I'm talking about today. What I'm talking about are choices in the moment that we make, the kind that are many, many, many a day. That's what impacts your life much more than the big decisions that we deal with. So who we marry or what career we choose may be big decisions, but your success in your marriage or your career is based on the little things you do on a daily basis. That's a key point I want you to take away. So we obsess about the big decisions and don't care about the little ones. So I'm a big believer in don't forget the small stuff. I don't say sweat the small stuff, but don't ignore the small stuff, because the small stuff catches up with you. If you go and look at anything that's gone wrong in a big way, most of them started small and you ignored them. Does that make sense? Right? Most of them started small and you ignored them for a long time, which means you gave it room to grow. And you watered it, put some fertilizer, and then one day you say, how did that happen? Or I'm in a bad way, or I'm bad luck. No, you let it go because you chose to ignore it. So when we come to choices, there are three types of choices again. Impulsive is the kind we use the most. That's what we do most of the time. Compulsive is a different one where you can't help but do it. I know people, one gentleman told me, if he goes home and finds one piece of paper or one thing out of place, he launches into a 3-hour cleaning exercise. That's compulsive. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those that we are conscious about and what we can pick and make a choice. And once we develop that skill, I guarantee you, your life improves in dramatic ways. Dramatic. It's unbelievable what benefit you can get. And I promise you, if you practice this just between Friday, you will be a whole lot better on Monday. It is that immediate. So, how do we do that? Let's talk about the how. So the first thing starts with integrating. Remember what Marcus Aurelius talked about? Opinion and perspective. So in my book, I have several true stories, but this one I made up. It's an argument between a bird and a fish, what a boat looks like. Do you think they'd ever agree? Now, if I asked you who is right, what would you say? Boy, you guys are so smart, you got that answer before I could finish my question. But if I replace that bird and a fish by two human beings, would you say the same thing? Would you? How many times when somebody says something exactly opposite of what you said, you say, oh, you're so right. We don't. Because we operate under a belief that we are not conscious about is if he or she is right, I must be. Did you see that? So that belief will make you not agree with them. But when it came to an abstract bird and a fish, you go, oh, both are right. But this is a problem that is endemic, whether it's boss, employee, husband, wife, Republican, Democrat, it's the same story. So if you really wanted to build a boat, who would you talk to? A lot of other people, right? Because you want to integrate as many perspectives and opinions as you probably can to see the full picture. And if you have a smart-ass son as I do, he'll say, don't talk to any of them, talk to a boat designer. He's right, okay? So, can everybody see this? Can you get it on the screen, please? What is it? Are you sure? Somebody said soccer ball? Right? So it's a golf ball, soccer ball, it could be either. Now, how many of you actually play golf? How many of you have been to the golf course to find this beautiful ball sitting there out in the middle? And you walk in and say, wow, I found this ball, how could somebody leave it here? And then you pick it up to find it's been hacked by a lawnmower and it's half a ball. Yes? I've done that. Oh, what a cool pro we won. Oops, right? So that's why they left it there. But until we picked it up and turned it over, we thought we won, we got $5, right? So what is the minimum number of perspectives you need in order to see the full picture? Minimum. 2, 3. So we are increasing one at a time. I love this group. Okay, guys. It's 4. And this is my engineer geekiness is showing through right here. So you have 4 sides that you need to look at. So whenever I am solving a problem, a complex one, I invite 4 different perspectives. Different perspectives. Not the same. 4 different perspectives. So you could have 4 people in your team or in your life who say something different and all can be right because they're looking at it from their vantage point, right? And I know Toledo doesn't have an NFL team, but I'm assuming a lot of you watch football. So how do we, people, regular people, who don't get paid the millions of dollars that a quarterback does, knows exactly what he should be doing in the game? Right? We know exactly what he should be doing. Why do you think that is? Because we are watching it zoomed in from an angle like this, most likely in slow motion. He, on the other hand, goes, if I don't get rid of this ball in the next 3 seconds, I'm going to be dead. Look at the perspective, right? And from his, even if he's 6 foot, 7 foot, whatever the size, the people coming at him to kill him are taller. A wall of people trying to get him in less than 5 seconds. I had the pleasure of working with the Steelers in the 90s for a couple of years, so I actually know this. And to the point is, I'm 6 foot tall, and when I was in the lunch line and I turned back, the head would be completely, I would have to do this to say hello. That's the difference, and we don't see that because they're all so tall, we think they're regular height. These are all massive people, and they're all coming to kill you in less than 5 seconds. So think about the situation. But we are drinking our beer, eating our popcorn or whatever else, watching it in slow motion and say, hey, he's wide open, you moron, right? That's what we do. But that's not the full picture. It's just a portion of the picture. So we are seeing it. And do you think he could be a better quarterback if he got to see what we got to see? Most likely not, because there's not much time. But that's why they're constantly looking at the sidelines, reviewing plays right after they're done. Because that's the way to reflect and learn, right? So all of us have 2 eyes to see the world, but we do need a mirror to look at ourselves. Right? We can see the world, and we have two eyes, but we need a mirror to look at ourselves. And that's a great metaphor for reflection and learning. So, in order to accelerate learning, we said experience is a great teacher with a catch. It's slow and expensive. So, how can you accelerate learning? So, I'm not saying experience is bad, you will get that. But in order to accelerate learning, the next thing you can add to it is reflection, guided reflection, not rabbit hole rumination. Why did I do that? Why am I an idiot? That's not what I'm talking about. What can I do different next time? What happened there? So, why questions tend to take you down a rabbit hole? What questions help you take action? Simple. Why did I do that? Or what can I do different? Very simple. What happened there? What can I do different? That's another very simple technique of how you can learn and accelerate learning. And when you add experience and reflection, then you can gain an insight. And that's what you want. More insights you get, the fewer the blind spots. And your unknown will start growing. But it's a good place. A blind spot versus an unknown, which one would you rather have? More unknowns or more blind spots? Ideally, you want more knowns, but if you had to choose only between blind spots and unknowns, would you rather have unknowns rather than not having a clue? That's a choice. So these are some very specific ways how you can start making a difference in your life right away. So the whole idea, my work is about making the invisible visible to you so that you can call it. Because if you can't see it, what are the chances of you being able to do anything about it? Right? And this is from The Little Prince. It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. So the whole idea, we talked about bird and the fish, looking at the golf ball. It's about integrating. It's not either or. All of us have been conditioned, I think, from childhood to get into an or situation. And guess where it begins? At home. Would you like to eat Cheerios or cornflakes? Because some parenting coach suggested, you don't want conflict in the morning. So don't ask them what they want for breakfast. Give them a choice and make them feel extremely powerful that they can choose. I'm serious. But there is nothing stopping from putting cornflakes and Cheerios in the same bowl with the same milk and the same spoon. But that's not what we give them because we want to have no argument. So our goal is not to have an argument in the morning. And in the process of achieving our goal of no conflict in the morning, we have conditioned most of our generation and future generations to choosing or. I'm a big believer in and wherever possible. So you want to use your head and your heart because either one by themselves is inadequate because they see only some of the picture. All right? So let's take a quick look at why do smart people make dumb choices? Right?
Why do smart people make dumb choices? That sounds like an oxymoron. Well, that's because we're confused with what it actually means to be smart. If everyone clearly knew what it meant, why would we say things like, he's book smart but not street smart? Here's the skinny behind smarts. Parents, teachers, and managers, listen up. For too long, we thought being smart meant having a high IQ. Yet we all know people who are good at math but can't look someone in the eye in a social setting. So we discovered that people also need to have emotional intelligence, and we started talking about interpersonal EQ. So is that it? Well, if you pick up a newspaper, I know not many do, so let's say you go online, you'll notice that most scandals that make the headlines are not due to the individual's low IQ or EQ. These people are known for their position in business or society. What they lack is JQ. It's their judgment quotient that's questionable. This is the missing keystone in the smarts arch.
So the whole idea is synonymous. Smart synonymous is IQ, usually. And we need that. And you need to learn how to deal with people. And you need to be able to make those choices in the heat of the moment. Does that make sense? So this is not a comparison. And before the introduction of JQ, the moment you have two things, IQ and EQ, people start comparing. Oh, EQ is better for you than IQ. Oh, IQ is better than EQ. Oh, it depends on the job. You need it all. That's all. You need everything. And so if there are three things, you need all three ingredients to make better choices. And Jeff Bezos was asked, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, who do you promote in your company? The hardworking people or the smart people? And his answer was, I promote people who get it right more often than not. What does getting it right mean? It's the quality of their choice. And tough choices that they made, which means they had courage to make the choice, and it ended up right. So he looks at people who are making those kinds of choices and getting them right more often than not. So judgment is the way he promotes people at Amazon. So what I'm going to talk to you now about, remember, driving is a great way to learn everything I talk about. So I'm going to use the metaphor of a dashboard. So yes, cars have dashboards, and if you ignore them, what are the possible consequences? If you ignore your dashboard, what possibly can go wrong? Out of gas, speeding ticket, yeah. Those are two very obvious ones. So let's look at the dashboards humans use. The one gauge that we use all the time, and especially high achievers, is your calendar. And what do we try to do with our calendar, high achievers? Fill it up. But now I'm going to show you another gauge, your energy. How many of you monitor your energy? We all know when we don't have it, right? So I feel extremely sleepy at 2:04 Eastern. Somewhere between 2:04 and 2:07 Eastern, I get very sleepy. Now that I know that, what can I do about it? I can schedule around it. I can take a nap. I can have a coffee, but it should be 20 minutes before, because it takes about 20 to 25 minutes for coffee to kick in. So if I'm 1:44, somewhere between 1:40 and 1:44, I got to get my coffee so that, and Daniel Pink or somebody, he quotes about, came up with this concept of nappuccino. Anybody heard of that? So you drink a cup of coffee and then take a nap. So when you wake up after 25 minutes, the coffee kicks in and you have a wonderful rest of the day. Okay? So that's a trick. What about attention? How many of you remotely monitor your attention levels? Most people don't. So let me ask you, so here we are, high achievers, using one gauge called calendar to schedule our life and our activities, not checking if we have the right energy and the right attention to deal with it. How do you think it's going to work? You wake up one morning, you have no energy, and you say, oh, I have a busy day, I got to get going. Look at the choice you just made. How many of you have done that? You feel low energy in the morning, you have a busy day, and you just plug along, right? Especially this room should have a few of those. So what can you do different now that you know this? Take care of your energy, fill that tank in the morning, otherwise the day is not going well. Simple choice. Make sense? Same thing with attention. If you can't pay attention, can you do anything worthwhile in a meeting or a sales call or any project? So we are ignoring two key gauges, and making our choices every day. So it's akin to not looking at your dashboard in your car, which means you can run out of gas, oil, speeding ticket, whatever else. That's what you're doing to your life. So by monitoring these three, time you'll always take care of. I don't need to give. And if you go to productivity conferences, they'll tell you how to fill it up even more. Right? How to wake up early, how to stay late, how to get the energy. But again, not an energy boost drink, okay? That lasts for a while. I've tried it once, okay? Just once. And that was because I had a radio interview at 6:15 in the morning, and I needed to be in Philadelphia at 9, which means I couldn't be on a flight. So I chose to drive, which is a 6-hour drive, which means when do I start? At 3. So I did buy the energy drink that day. All right? So I love acronyms, and EAT is an acronym, so I keep saying, start eating well. What do you think EAT stands for, given what we just talked about? E, energy. A, attention. T, in that order. We don't use that order. We tend to use time because we're just looking at a calendar. So if you start with energy, get your energy right, make sure your attention levels are good, then schedule what you need to do based on how important that activity is. And a lot of us spend time with our families when we have no capacity to pay any attention. Right? Those are some of our most important relationships. And what do you think? Just you think they don't know you're not paying attention? People are so perceptive that they know when you're not paying attention on the other end of a telephone. Yes? Have you been accused of you're not listening? Not just by your mom, but by even other people, right? Well, how can they tell? Because something changed. Most likely your attention, you lost attention on that conversation. You're doing something else, checking email, or just tuned out, and they can tell. And if you do this to your most important relationships, the only thing that really matters to human beings is you matter. And by not paying attention to them, you are communicating, you don't matter. I have more important things to do. That's the kind of choices we make on a daily basis and not realizing the consequences because we can't see the consequences. How many of you just saw Rocket Man? Nobody? Okay, and then I'm not going to tell you about it. Go see it. Okay? So energy, attention, and time are what I would say is the order in which you want to organize your life going forward. And you can do that starting today. This is an unfortunate and sad stat. 92% of high achievers are unhappy. That is such a sad stat because high achievers are goal-oriented, they get things done, and they're unhappy. What's wrong with that picture? So my goal has been to increase that number from 8%, not increase 92, so let's keep that clear, increase it from 8% to 14% in my lifetime. That's my mission. And so I've studied this extensively, and I find that there are some reasons why this happens, because they're all beliefs. So a lot of people believe that happiness comes from success. And having worked with billionaires, millionaires, super successful people over the last 20 years, I can tell you it is not equal to success. Absolutely not. So what else might be in it, right? So really, if you look at it, happiness is equal to success and fulfillment. So what does that mean? So if you really look at it in 3 levels, you have values, goals, and actions. And high achievers are very good at doing these too. They're very good at setting goals and taking the actions that get them to their goals. And that leads to success. So, can we go back to the screen, please? So what is fulfillment? Very simply stated, it is more about aligning your goals with your values. That's how. So the key thing is, if you want success and fulfillment, what you want is alignment across all three. And I have a values exercise that is in your handout that you can go online and do if you want some help with clarifying your values. Most people don't take the time to clarify their values. And if, again, remember I said making the invisible visible. So for me, getting clear about your values is the first step, because all of you are good at getting goals and actions done. Now, when it comes to actions, we got to also learn a little bit more about how we take actions. And this is where, again, more acronyms. The PIG comes in, which is our drive to pursue instant gratification. This is, again, a primal skill. And we have another primal skill that keeps us alive, which is the ape, which is our ability to avoid painful experiences. And if you think about it, most of the choices we make are going towards pleasure or avoiding pain. That's what we do. And then, if you can get control of these two characters, they will run your life. Once you get control of those two, or try to monitor those two, you got to deal with the third character. That's you. So when Nathan read out my bio, what you got to introduce was that dude in front. Hopefully, in the 1 hour I'm spending with you, you get to know me. But you do need a bio, otherwise, if I had a shitty bio, you think I'll be standing here? No. So you need that. That's for purpose. You need a resume to get a job. You say, I'm just average, I'm no big deal. Then you don't get a job. So the context, again, matters. But the whole idea is the confusion starts when you think both are the same. When you think that your role is who you are, that's when the problem, that's another trap. Who you are and what you do are what separates this. So who you are as a person, as authentic as you want to be, separates you from who you are at work. Some people say role, soul. Authentic self versus the mind-made self. So the pig and the ape are really good at yanking the ego. So you want to be really aware that when you're yielding to your pig and the ape, most likely you're trying to protect your image. The image you present to the world, which usually is your bio or your resume. So most of us are not using our minds. Our minds are using us. So you want to be really watching who's in charge. Am I in charge, or is the monkey in my head in charge? Right? We all have that question. There are voices in our head, there's conversations, and so on. So just being aware who's in charge is a cool way to start making a difference. So when you start to feel uneasy or feel out of control, I say hit the pause button. And this is interesting because every time you see a YouTube button to play, think pause. All these are physical reminders for you to see how you can operate at a different way. Does it make sense? So these are clues. So this is how you can really start practicing. Nathan was talking, you're not going to deal with this when the crisis happens. You got to start practicing so that when the event happens, it's natural for you to just do it. So start practicing. When you see the play button, ask these 3 questions. Am I being driven by fear or pain? Am I being driven by greed or pleasure? Or am I being driven by my pride or ego needs? Very simple. All of them are in your handout. So these 3 questions, if the answer to any of them is yes, check out the consequences of that choice. And if you're still cool with the consequences, go for it. If not, reflect and make a change. All right? So this is, again, had the good fortune of learning this from Bill Gates himself in 92 or 93, I forget the year, when he was not as big shot as he is today. And we were at a conference in Las Vegas, and one of the evenings they had this social event, armadillo races. So we could bet on our favorite armadillo and make money or lose money. And so the first race, both the armadillos start very slowly and go about 6, maybe from here till about here, and one of them makes a U-turn. And people get really upset because they lost money. So that was really funny, right? So race number 2, same thing. Race number 3, same thing. I got bored. I walked out, and there's one other guy outside, Bill Gates. He was so bored. He had finished his drink, and he was chewing ice left at the bottom of his cup. I walked up to him because he had just come to Carnegie Mellon, where I was working at that time, and hired my boss and a colleague to run Microsoft Research. So I walked up to Bill and said, hey, I work for so-and-so. And he said, nice. But the whole conversation lasted maybe 2 minutes. But he said something so profound that I live with it and have developed a whole exercise around it. He said, Krishna, in life, we have more balls than we can possibly juggle at any moment. The key is to figure out which of those are made of glass. We have more balls than we can possibly juggle at any moment in our life. The key is to figure out which of those are made of glass. I said, wow, that's pretty profound. So I started working on it because most high achievers, one more reason we have high anxiety and the rest of it is because we think every ball we juggle is made of glass. So take a moment to write down some of the things that are bothering you right now and in your handout, and write down whether they are glass balls, and I'm going to reveal the next. So after working with this for a few years, I said, wait a minute, maybe there's I can add a few things so that we can reduce our anxiety, which was I created 2 other kinds of balls, which is a wooden ball, which means if you're juggling and you drop a wooden ball, what happens? It lands and it goes thud. You drop a glass ball, what happens? Crashes. So mess, cleanup, cost, everything. Wooden, I just need to have more ability to keep juggling and pick it up, which I'm not a juggler and I'm going to pretend. On the other hand, this one is gone. This one you can recover. What about a rubber ball? Bounce back. So this is a very useful exercise when you get overwhelmed or over anxious to look at all the things that you have going on and classify them into one of those columns. This is an exercise you can keep, and this is one of those you can dust off anytime you need and use it in real time. Okay, so just take a moment to figure out, at least write down, and I want one person to tell me an example of a glass ball. As soon as you have it, you can shout out, a glass ball in your life. And I know some people here truly have glass balls, but I want to hear one of them. Anybody with a real glass ball? Which means if you drop it, it crashes, never to have back again. It's gone. Yes, louder, please. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Now, rest of the room, is that a glass ball or a wooden ball? Okay, so which means today she got to get it right, otherwise it crashes. That's a glass ball. Is that kind of an event? No. So too many people label wooden balls as glass balls. Okay? Too many people, and I'll give you one example. Need to file taxes. Is it a glass ball? For 20 years, for me, it was a glass ball, and I ruined my March and April trying to do this. Till last year, Katie's a CPA, somebody sent me this email saying your K1 will be delayed till May 31st. I said, oh my God, right? Glass ball. I said, and now I'm forced to file an extension. Guess what? This year, I turned in my taxes on September 30th. And I didn't have any stress. But for 20 years, I was midnight. At 11:50, I'll be racing to the only post office that's open, California Street. I know how to get there because before GPS, I had to figure out how to get there before midnight. Unnecessary, completely unnecessary. Eat 3 meals. Glass ball, wooden ball, rubber ball. Except for those people who are hypoglycemic. So for them, it's a glass ball. For most others, it's a wooden or rubber ball. Launch a new product. Wooden ball, exactly. That's what I said. But most people live as though it's a glass ball. And it could be a glass ball if a financing or a partnership is predicated on the launch of that product. So you got to, again, look at the context like we were talking about. Does that make sense? So the context defines. And lastly, answer the phone. Yeah. But how do we operate? Oh my God, my phone's ringing. I got to take it. Right? Or, I don't want to talk to this person. And you ignore it. But the key is with voicemail and 100 different ways people can access you, answering the phone, unless, again, there are events. 911, I hope you answer the phone. Right? Thanks to having people from the forces, 911, we better answer the phone. So, in summary, we are in the final stretch. What do you think ADJ stands for? I'm going to give it to you. Awareness. So you want to raise your awareness to your blind spots and everything else, learning about the context. What else is going on over here? And then having some discipline to put things in place that you learned today and the rest of the day from the other speakers so that you have a game plan that we were talking about. Lastly, is it about exercising good judgment in the moment of choice. That's ADJ. The adjective to be awesome is ADJ. ADJ is the adjustments you need to make in order to get to awesome. So I hope you got at least one idea out of my talk. And if so, and I hope you're motivated that this is not as difficult as it sounds. When you're motivated, and I hope you're motivated right now, write down one action you will take within the next 24 hours. I'm serious, because later equals what? Never. Excellent. So if you want it to be never, you make a choice and don't do it in the next 24 hours. If you want it to help you, write down one action you're going to do differently as a result of our time together, because if you don't do that, I'd feel terrible about wasting an hour of your life. Seriously, it's not an hour of your time, it's an hour of your life, or 75 minutes of your life, which makes it even worse. So take one action, and then this is a key requirement for high achievers. If you actually take that action in the next 24 hours, what reward will you give yourself? This is the hardest part. Because high achievers believe, oh, we should be doing that already. I'm behind the 8 ball. Yes? I'm behind the 8 ball? I'm one of those. But unless you give yourself a reward and set yourself a reminder that triggers you to keep doing this, it's not going to happen. It'll just remain in your head as another great idea. Right? Seminars are awesome for great ideas, and that's where most seminars end. You go back to work, go back to your life, and it's same old, same old. Yes? This is not your first seminar, I'm betting, right? How many of the things that you actually put in place, the great ideas you heard in seminars, the reason is because this doesn't happen. Give yourself the reward, set a trigger or a reminder to do it again. That's the cycle. And every time you do it, you give yourself a reward until the action itself is the reward. Does that make sense? Because you will get the benefit, but it takes a little time for you to realize that benefit. Until that point, give yourself an external reward. Okay? So I'm going to summarize with 2 days at a time is a very simple way to think about, not the rest of your life, but 2 days at a time. And I already talked about you can do whatever you want today as long as it doesn't jeopardize your tomorrow. And there is a sample sheet in your handout. It's ultra simple. Ask yourself 2 questions, and you can ask these 2 questions anytime you want. It doesn't have to be daily. The first question is really, what did I learn today? And what can I do different tomorrow? And I'm assuming most of you brushed your teeth before getting here this morning. That's an assumption, but let me go with that. And these brushes that we have, timers and so on, time it for 2 minutes. So spend 1 minute answering the question, what did I learn today? And 1 minute, what can I do different tomorrow? And if you do those, give yourself a reward. So what I hope that you will accomplish is, if you spend and committed to spending 2 minutes to whiten your teeth, I'm asking you and really appealing to you, will you take 2 minutes to brighten your life? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do you want to do a question or two?
Mother, we have 5 minutes, yeah.
We do have about 5 minutes. We can take a couple of questions if anybody has them. I can bring the mic over. Does this come off? Just pop out. I can't see with the lights.
Please raise your hand. We can barely see
Okay.
you.
Gotta give me a chance to walk.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. I look at EAT, and I think often about how do young professionals who are kind of under everyone, and I'm sure even more seasoned professionals, but you're under the everyone else's time crunch, right? I don't put a calendar invite on my boss's schedule. She puts one on mine. So how do I prioritize my own energy and my own attention when somebody else has to prioritize my time?
Excellent question. So all they're controlling is T. So what choice do you have to control your energy? And then, most likely, your boss is not aware of this either. So educate them. Who is going to argue? Did anybody argue with my logic of if you don't have energy and you don't have attention, you can't do anything well? You think your boss wants to do you to do not well? I'm serious. So that's communication and education, and it's really about being authentic. You're not trying to scam them, right? This is a fairly logical conversation, but you want to connect at the heart. Make them feel that you want to do a good job, right? You're a high achiever, you want to do a good job, and at 2 o'clock, 2:04, I get sleepy. Please don't schedule the most important client meeting at 2:04 or 2 o'clock. What are the, no, we got to do it at 2 o'clock. The chance, and if that is the case, then you better do something at 1:40, which is that espresso or whatever else you need to do. But don't make it a habit, right? Once you know that 2 o'clock is the situation. And it's about education. Anybody here thinks that their boss or the superior will disagree with energy, attention, and time? If you took the time to teach them, right? So this you can manage up. It's a very simple construct, but it's fairly usable. Did I address your question? Yes. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more.
It's like a puzzle, I got to say. Actually, it's pretty easy. Watch where Nathan is walking.
Hello, sir. You mentioned about the 3 balls, the glass ball, the wooden ball, and the rubber ball. Can you give me a good, strong scenario of a glass ball scenario?
Okay.
I mean, you gave one, but I thought it was, you can say it could be yes or no, but a strong scenario of a glass ball situation.
So let's take the examples I used. So the launch of a product, if it's predicated on a financing, right? If you don't launch this partnership doesn't happen, it just collapses. And you work 3 years on it, and the future of your business is predicated on that partnership. That's a glass ball. And that's a professional glass ball. A personal glass ball, if you're hypoglycemic and you choose not to eat, because how many of us, when we are hungry and we are a high achiever, says we will skip lunch? Right? And the neat thing about hunger is it has audible alerts, right? Your stomach growls when it says, I'm really hungry. And then how many of you have been in a conference call or in a meeting and your stomach is growling and you pretend it's not yours? Yeah, that's what we do. So if you're hyperglycemic and you do that, you're going to be in trouble. And like that, and the key thing is, I'm glad you asked this question so that I could go back over it. The key is for you to ask yourself, okay? And most of in life, they're not glass balls. That's the point. They usually, yes, when you don't do it right, they're reversible. So another way to look at it is it reversible or irreversible? And I'll tell you one thing we told our children. Normally, when you have little kids, you keep saying, no, don't do that, no, 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 no. And an average elementary kid, I was told, listens to 400 no's a day. So we said, we're not going to say no to our children. And so we had to come up with rules. So when do we say no? Because just say no, don't using the word is not a good strategy. So if they're going to cross the road and get run over, we will say no. If they're going to jump off a 3-foot wall and break their arm, we will let them do it. I'm serious. This was an agreement my wife and I had because that's the way they learn, experience, right? It's slow and painful, but you got to learn. With that, thank you very much. Good luck, and I'm here the rest of the day.
Excellent. So we got 10 minutes or so. Grab a coffee, go to the bathroom, whatever. There's a breakout session. It's on your agenda. Pick which one you want to go to. Be back in 10.